Well, we're on the University of Sheffield AMRC stand with AMRC Research Director, Professor Ben Morgan. Ben, tell me what excites you most about the AMRC stand at MAC 2024.
Well, we're really excited to be back, Nick. We've brought some fantastic technology. There's fantastic technology across the whole show, and we're really excited to meet collaborators, both old and new.
Now, I know one of the things you're really focused on is what you call the digital thread. Please let us understand what the digital thread is and what it sets out to achieve for UK manufacturing.
Okay, so the digital thread is the connectivity across a product's life cycle, right from the requirements and the concept design, the detail design, through the manufacturing stages, the operation and the end of life of a product. And there's many different systems and many different teams, particularly in the early stages of concept development of a product, that need to come together, work together seamlessly, and we're working on the integration and the interoperability across that thread.
Now, we've been talking digital for some years now. Is this digital thread really the result of seeing a lot of the challenges that are out there, of people maybe digitizing individually and in their own location, and not all of it connecting or making sense necessarily?
I think you're right, yes, certainly. We've worked over the last few years on many different discrete elements of the thread, but pulling it all together will be really a paradigm shift in terms of efficiency, in terms of assurance, in terms of collaboration with supply chains and so on and so forth.
So how are you trying to demonstrate the virtue of the digital thread here at MAC 24?
Okay, well, the digital thread is particularly important to highly regulated industry where people have very complex products. So we've picked a UAV that you can see just behind us here, which is a complex assembly, it's complex manufacturing, tight tolerances, and lots of different systems coming together. We're using the UAV as an example of that complex product to drive through the system. And what you can see around the stand are some of the manufacturing technologies that the AMRC brings to the table, from design, casting, machining, composites, through to the end of life as well.
It feels like this MAC 24 is almost a gear change in the way the sector is working. Net zero is underway. We're now looking at really bringing the whole digital landscape together.
Absolutely right, yeah. I think, and we've got to. One of the big advantages of the digital thread is bringing products to market far quicker. We can have multiple teams, concurrent engineering, and we know that with 2050 regulations on net zero, we've really got to get those new net zero products to market as quick as possible.
Ben Morgan, thank you very much indeed. Now let's talk to a couple of representatives from Siemens who are very much involved in the digital thread we've just been discussing. Brian Holliday, Managing Director of Siemens Digital Industries. Why do you think it's so important that the AMRC, HVMC and Siemens and many others come together to create this digital thread?
Well, for me, Nick, digitalization is a team sport. It's not one where firms tend to make a lot of progress in isolation of partners that are perhaps innovation or technology partners, or even best practice sharing partners who've perhaps taken a step ahead of them. So I think it's incredibly important as a sector that we come together, particularly in the UK. So this is an international race to make better use of technology when we're designing products, we're automating factories, and we're extracting and exploiting data, the main elements of this thread. Then we need to have clear understanding, and I think some of that's derived through experimenting and trying things, working with organisations that can perhaps lend a hand at each of those steps.
Getting this messaging out, though, is vital, isn't it? Because we have been lagging behind on digitization, on robotics, automation, and the rest. We've got to stay in the race, as you called it, with everybody else in the world.
We absolutely have, and it was one of the reasons why in 2017, when the Made Smarter report was first written, we'd identified that here in the UK, we are underutilising some of those core automation technologies in comparison with other countries, and guess what, that correlates with lower productivity as well. So I think it's incredibly important as we understand better the power of the technology, exactly as you suggest, that we're not left behind. But if we're to unlock decarbonisation too, it's predicated on making much better use of digital technologies. We can design and influence more environmentally friendly products. We can use data in the factories to better understand the impact of our factories on the environment. And certainly we should be doing that by asking questions of a digital twin. If we've built one at the design stage and we're asking questions of how we're operating with the product or the process in the digital twin, then hopefully we can have more sustainable, more productive factories in the future too. And this for me is the power of data, but we've got to build the competence and the confidence to use this through the sort of partners and ecosystems that I think we're proud to support with AMRC and the High Value Manufacturing Catapult.
Alan Norbury, it's your job to sort of drive this at the technical level. What are the challenges for you, particularly given that Siemens will not possibly be able to own the whole space of this? It's going to be a collaborative effort right across the board.
No, it's a very good point, that, isn't it? It's absolutely essential that it's not just about Siemens or AMRC. To deliver true value, you have to do it in collaboration with other organisations. And a big part of that is open standards. You know, working to open standards so all these different devices and different manufacturers connect together very easily. And that's all the way through the life cycle of manufacturing. So starting off with the product where you design and develop it virtually, model it virtually, and then simulate it. And then from there, you produce the hard physical version. And the reason you do that is because you could take your products to the market a lot quicker than you would do otherwise. And then you manufacture it. So again, you virtualize and model and simulate the manufacturing process, but using the same core data that you develop when you design the product. And you reuse that data and over again, all the way through the life cycle of manufacturing that product, even in service. And one of the things we've been showing here today is disassembly. So what happens at the end of life when your product is no longer in use? Well, I think in the future we'll want that product back into the manufacturer's hands to be able to disassemble it and reuse those core components, because those resources, those material in the future might be quite limited. So now you can make use of that material on new products. So we have the demonstrator here to show exactly how to achieve that.
Would it be fair to describe the digital thread as a kind of gear change in the digitization story? For years we've been talking about getting companies to digitize their processes, gather data, interpret it and so on, predictive maintenance, but now we're talking about digitizing the whole thing. That is a significant gear change, is it not?
I think one of the biggest challenges of achieving that is all the way through the supply chain. So do they have the right skills? Are they aware of what digitalization can mean for them in terms of value generation? So one of the great things of working with the AMRC is the fact that, you know, when you go out in the real world, quite often we keep reinventing the wheel, which means we're going to be less globally competitive. However, if we got it right, and we actually work with the likes of the AMRC, they've probably seen that digital challenge before, so we don't keep reinventing the wheel. They also have the skills, they also have the technology as well. So therefore, you can try before you buy, in effect. Without having to have the skills beforehand, they can tell you what skills you need, they can tell you what the right technology is, they can prove it in a pilot process. That means you can get to take your product to the market a lot quicker than you've ever done before, which makes the UK economy more globally competitive.
Alan Norbury, Holliday, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.